right. Hello. Welcome to another episode of Inside Out Universe. I mentioned this last time. I am just starting my podcast, so I have no idea which episodes you guys are seeing first. So this might be the first one, in which case, welcome. And if it's not, welcome back. Today, she gave me very specific instructions on how to introduce her. Today I have a really special guest. She's actually one of my best friends, and I mean that wholeheartedly. Because I have trouble making friends. One of my best friends, her name is Mahtab or Moonlight. She is also dating one of my best friends in the whole wide world, someone I call my brother, who does all of the editing and everything for this podcast. So all around a very important person. She's also very artistic. She's involved in event planning, event coordinating, performance. She's just an all-around artist / weirdo. So this is my friend Mahtab. Hi.
Hi.
How are you? Are you nervous?
Not nervous, but I've never been in this setting before, so let's
and I
do
both.
this.
Well, one other time, but I'm nervous too. It's okay if you're nervous.
I'm more nervous about what questions you're gonna ask me.
I feel like you have the wrong idea about my podcast.
I would love to know more.
I prepare nothing, so I have no idea what we're going to talk about.
Makes a lot of sense.
And I intentionally do that because anybody who knows me knows I love being prepared for things. So I'm trying to challenge myself. So my podcast really has no format or preparation about anything. Like me and Omid, the last podcast we filmed, we always joke around, have a lot of fun, whatever. But the podcast we actually filmed was actually not very funny. It was actually very serious. We talked about his injury and like all types of different things. So it's just kind of the idea is inside out universe. So it's just being inside out. The only requirement for my podcast is just being honest and being forthcoming and just vulnerable. And it doesn't always have to be you. You are more than welcome to ask me questions. I actually kind of like bouncing off my guests because I don't want it to come across as an interrogation. I'm not interrogating you. There are no questions.
You're not the only one asking questions.
There are no questions.
Okay,
so how are you doing?
that.
How is life going so far?
Life is amazing. Recently it's been going up
Okay.
more than it's been going down.
Okay, we like that.
Yeah.
We like
we
that.
like that. So even if it goes down a little bit, it goes down up more. So
Yeah.
that's been kind of the side of the roller coaster I've been
The
on.
only bad thing about when you're on an uphill is that what goes up must come down.
Yeah.
Don't think about it the way that I do, but sometimes when I'm having a good time in life, I have a moment where I'm yay, and then I have a moment where I'm oh no.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you think like that too, or it's just me?
I feel like I learned that more in terms of charts. So when
Okay.
you're looking at a chart, it never goes up,
Okay.
just going up.
Yeah, consistently.
It's just backs down a little bit, rests, and then go back up.
Not a chart, because some charts do go up consistently.
In the bigger
Like a
aspects of
heartbeat.
things. But they still go, heartbeat even goes up and down.
Yeah, a heartbeat makes more sense because a chart, if it's a I don't know, a chart about profits if a business is doing really well, who knows?
It still has
might,
days that it goes a little bit down.
but it's possible
Yeah,
that
that's
it goes
right.
only
It's
up.
possible,
But
but
with a
it's-
heartbeat, it's not.
I'm only saying that because I tried to learn how to read charts to trade. During COVID, that was one of the things I learned.
Okay.
And they were okay, you don't have to look at the market and be okay, today was bad. Yesterday was that. The day before was bad. So we're just going down in an uptrend.
Yeah.
Because that's needed to balance things out.
Yeah, for sure.
And
And
that's
another
natural
thing
thing.
to everybody who's watching this and thinking, oh no, adapting my mindset of when things are going up, it's coming down. I'm going to say this. First of all, that's a horrible thing to think about. Don't think about that. And second of all, when you're up, you never know. Maybe you'll just keep going up because you don't know how up you're going to go. You know what I'm saying? Obviously, life is up and down, but just because you're up doesn't mean you can't go further up. So
Yeah, exactly.
definitely don't do what I do.
I
in
guess the
terms of
general direction matters more.
Yeah.
Which is
But I'm enjoying watching you grow a lot.
Yeah.
I do definitely see you growing in a lot of ways.
Beautiful.
What's the main way that you think you're growing?
I like to the way I look at the concept of growth
Mhm.
is just like a plant.
Okay.
And a plant is first a seed, then it gets to go underground in the dark. It needs to be trying to get some nutrition, whatever.
Yeah.
And then it's in the dark for a long time. then it starts slowly
To
getting
sprout.
to sprout.
Yeah.
Actually, one of the poems or songs I wrote on and I'm working
She
on
writes
is that
poems, guys.
I'm recording this one.
And they're dope. And she has a book too. It's not out, but she has a book of her poems.
Yeah, I like writing stories into beautiful sounding things. So it actually explains the story of growth. Is what it's called, and it's like a sprout, and then a sprout slowly has to become a tree, and it's not like you automatically grow when you have fruits.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
You know, so that's how I look at the cycle of growth, and that's how I see myself, especially like recently, trying to get out of the seedling like little thing underground phase, which is an important part because you're growing roots.
Yeah.
Which is what I've been doing a lot of, like roots, stability, like
Foundation.
basic foundation things, which is very needed because you can't have a tree if you don't have that phase.
I talked to Omid about this actually a little bit too. I think about it like similarly, but a little bit different. I think about it in terms of seasons, just because I find personally that if you think about it like a tree, then when you get to a point where because I've been in that position where I've been in a point where I've felt like I'm sprouting and I am a tree and I've gotten to whatever. And then sometimes you lose it and then you lose it all. And then you see it more as like, oh my God, I lost it all. So I stopped thinking about it that way and started thinking about it more in terms of seasons. And for me, it's like when it's winter, you see everybody go more into themselves. They're collecting, they're brewing things inside of themselves. They're more like inside, literally, physically. And I have seasons like that too, where I'm literally like doing more work internally. And then it's like the summer where you come out and you're, putting on display everything that you've been working on.
Yeah.
So then when you think about it, when I think about it that way, you're never really losing anything,
Yeah.
So I think about it more like seasons because I don't want to be like, I lost it all. Because I did have a period where I was like, oh no, I lost everything I worked for. But we're not going to talk about that right now.
Okay.
We can talk about that, but I prefer to talk about you.
We'll get there maybe eventually. I did call this year of my life. I just came across this concept of naming your year. So you're like, this year is the year of.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
And it came right in time and I'm like, okay, this year is the year of blossom.
Okay, nice. I like that.
And I'm like, okay, I'm finally to a point that I'm gonna bloom. And that's, to me, is where everybody else can see what you've been working on.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, that's gonna be the theme of the year.
I love that season. It's great.
Yeah. But yeah, definitely you do go through suddenly you're like a happy little flower and then winter hits.
Yeah. And when you think about it like that, it's less depressing, because like when I think about it like that, and I do go like more into myself, I'm like comfortable because I'm like, okay, like this happens. It's not like I'm not depressed. I'm just brewing.
Note it.
Yeah, it helps. Oh, one thing I will note before we start really talking about things is Matom and I have what I think is like really fucking dope. We're very similar in ways that obviously bond us. And we're very different in a lot of like very like crazy ways. So we do bicker and argue a lot. And I don't know about you, but I like that about my relationship with you because every time you and I bicker, I feel like there's like an undertone of like, this is not personal. It's just what we do. And I personally walk away thinking like I learned a lot from that.
Learning. Yeah, I was just going to say that. Like that a lot of times we say, doesn't matter what response I have to you, I'm still taking it in.
I do too. No matter what you think, I do walk away a lot of times from my conversations with you. And I've mentioned this to Ali too, where I like come home and I think about it, even though in the moment I'm like fighting you on it and whatever. That's just how I am.
That's like automatic reactions that we're used to have.
But that's good because I feel like that like going toe to toe thing, it makes you like stand your ground and like kind of like build your arguments better and also like think about where the flaws in your arguments and stuff are. And
I've learned to like it because first time I'm like, okay, I need peace. That's like, if you know me, I prioritize my peace like here. This is the most important thing I have in my life. I don't want to join. So a lot of times I used to actually avoid arguments and just like if somebody wasn't agreeing with me, I'm like, okay, no, okay.
All like right. Be more passive,
yeah. But I like how you don't give up. You're like, but that, and then that, and you don't care if like the vein on your forehead is pumping.
Annihilate arguments
over the smallest little like not important.
But you know what though, I like that
because that makes us go back and forth.
I personally, you're one of my favorite people to talk to. And I don't know if I've ever told you this before, but like I genuinely, because we are so different in our perspectives. It's crazy because foundationally and like based on principle, we are very similar, but the way we approach things is so different, which is why it's so fun to talk about, because it's never personal. It's just like, you know, like a banter. But the thing with me personally is that, and I don't know, maybe this is a bad trait, and I might have picked this up. Actually, I don't know. Maybe I always had this personality trait, which is why I went into law, or maybe I developed it more when I went into law. But like for me, one of my least favorite things about like our generation is like people say things without thinking about them, without letting them brew. So then when you push them on it, they get defensive because they can't defend their argument because they haven't actually thought about it. They've just developed a point and like parrots keep repeating it. So one of my favorite things to do, I do this with my little cousins too. When people say like something, like an opinion or something, it makes me the bad guy in a lot of cases. But to be honest with you, I enjoy it because I think that people should learn to say things that they mean and stand on it, stand on business.
Have backup arguments.
It's like, for me, it's like if I talk to you about something and you tell me your opinion and I keep pushing you on it and you don't have arguments to support what you just said, it's not really on me. It's kind of a shitty point. You know what I mean?
So you kind of like push them to actually seek those.
Develop your argument.
Develop those.
You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I'm gonna keep pushing a point. So like my friends know, you know this, don't say something in front of me if it's not something you've thought about for a while.
Yeah.
You know? Or go and think about it some more. Because this is stupid. But yeah, so I do like to do that. I don't know. But I only do, like, I had a time where I was like trying to like figure out if I was too aggressive or if like, you know, I went through that phase.
I mean, you do have very strong opinions.
Yeah.
But that just means that you're very certain about what you're saying.
Yeah.
It does make you a little less agreeable, which is like if somebody else is trying to now show you something, it's like it's gonna be harder for you to open up and accept that because you have such strong arguments backing up everything you're saying.
That's actually, to be honest with you, and I'm gonna tell you this like so that you know, because it's personal.
Okay.
When we argue and I'm like sticking to my point, the same way that I was telling you, like that, I apply that logic to myself. So when I'm talking to someone, I assume that they also want me to stand my ground.
Yeah.
To show them that this is something that I have thought about and I'm not just pulling it out of my ass. But one thing about me, and like Ali knows this the best because him and I banter so much, I hear everything you say when we argue, even when it sounds like I'm not listening, because I'm the type of person where I'll argue with you all day and then when you leave, I'll think about what you said till 4 a.m.
Me too.
Yeah. And you can see because I'm sure you and I have had arguments before where we've argued, but then you've seen me change the exact thing you were telling me to change.
Yeah.
Ali notices this about me all the time.
Yeah. Like you do go think about it.
Yeah. It's just, I'm not going to give you the pleasure of knowing that.
Yeah. I kind of do that too.
That's
that
so
makes
funny.
sense. It's just like I find that a lot of times that like there's a inner resistance that is like it's just been like a trait that we picked up along the way because we had to defend ourselves. Mm-hmm. And I learned this from my mom, actually. She's very defensive.
Okay.
So automatically when something comes up, she feels that need to defend herself and her position.
Yeah.
And I picked that up from her. So I do that too. And it's just, I feel like it's just like a response that we gathered based on how we had to navigate life. It's just comes and goes. And sometimes I'm more aware of it. Oh, I was very resistant about that idea.
You are very stubborn.
Let me make a note of it and like know that this is what I've been doing. And like next time, all I can do be aware of it.
Yeah.
If it comes up, because it's gonna come up because it's been ingrained way too deep.
Yeah.
But all I can do, and that's what I'm saying, okay, sometimes we say stuff and you say stuff and I say stuff and like we're like all standing your ground. Both of us are gonna go home and think about it. No matter what I say, I'm still gonna go think about what you said.
But that's honestly why a part of the reason why I don't back down from being that way. Because this is the thing, right? Like I went through periods, obviously, when you're growing up where like you learn how to be a balanced person. Like you learn that, okay, maybe this thing that I'm doing maybe is not necessarily a bad thing, but it's just something that I need to do less or something that I need to balance with something else. I went through that period, but I came back to where I was because I thought about it a lot. And that's why I realized, okay, it might just be my temperament. It might just be like the way I choose to live my life. Part of the reason why like I choose to stand my ground, honestly, is because I just find like life is, to me, is one big project, you know, and that's the funnest thing about life. You could be anything in your life, and you could make it's so much fun. Like, I know this sounds so cliche, but life is so fun, you know, like it's literally your biggest project yet, because at the end of it you die. You know, so it's like it's really like, and the thing is, like, you're guaranteed to die, so there's no way you could really fuck it up, you know what I mean? So like, it's just kind of this one big project that you get to work on, and the ending's the same for all of us, so it doesn't really matter what you do. So like, in that way, you have to choose to be something in life, and no matter what you choose, you're gonna, in the eyes of some people, you're gonna be wrong, and you're not gonna be everybody's type of person. So I think in my head, I'm like, what type of person do I want to be in this life? And when I thought about it through those seasons of my life, I came back to the point that I like being this type of person.
I see. I love those. I love those things when you're like, this is what I thought about and I decided to be. Yeah. I do that too. I'm like, okay, it's been a while. I'm making like a completely a weird decision to stay this way because of it. It remains consistent with the identity I'm trying to present. Yeah. Or build. Yeah. Which I like that.
It's like intentional living. Yeah. You know? I really like that too.
And sometimes I say I've been blessed and cursed with a deep awareness because I'm completely aware of all the decisions that I am making, because I sit and I'm an overthinker. I think all the time. I don't even go on social media so I can think and overthink. Yeah. So I think about all of these things, and I love that you said that, like, I actually thought about this and I changed it and I went on the other side. I'm like, no, I like that about me. Yeah, that's gonna be me.
Yeah, a lot of times,
and I think that's very important to do in general as a person, to be like, okay, this is a trait I have, I'm aware of it, I've tried, this is where I lack a lot of times. I've tried the other side. Yeah. If you tell me to wake up at 7 a.m. in the morning every day, I'm like, fuck, I don't want to be that person.
Yeah, that's one thing we argue about all the time, is like, I'll tell her, I'll be like, Matab, like, have you ever tried? Because she'll tell me, for example, she'll be like, I'm having this problem. And the type of person I am, I guess it's like the more aggressive side of my personality. When somebody tells me they have a problem, I'm not the consoling type. I'm the solution type. So for example, she'll be like, oh, I get really frustrated at myself because I mismanage my time. I will respond and say, why don't you wake up earlier? And this is one of the arguments that we have a lot. And she'll be like, I'm not the type of person that gets up early, and I'm not a morning person.
Because I want to remain consistent with the identity.
And a lot of people are going to agree with you, because those people are also, you know, like similar in temperament to you. But my response will always be, how can you say you're not that type of person if you haven't tried it? And by I always tell her this, I don't mean wake up early one morning, because it's going to suck. It sucks for me too. I'm a morning person and it still sucks. But try it for long enough to try it on as an identity, and then circle back if you don't like it.
Yeah. I've done that in some things, and I've decided that that's what I want to be. But like in a lot of things, I realized that I don't. And it's kind of like, okay, I try to be this person, and then every day I wake up, I'm like, oh, this is my worst nightmare. I always try to not end up here all my life.
Oh my year right now. Yeah, I feel you. I'm like that with my own things.
But it takes a while, because you have to get that out of your system. So that's that. With waking up in the morning, I'm not nearly close, but I'm trying to wake up early, like around 12:30.
That's pretty early for Matab.
12:30 is
when I hear that, like, I get goosebumps, because to me, if I wake up at 12:30, the day's over. I hate myself.
But the thing is, I would like my days to not end. So until 6 a.m., I don't want it to end. I'm still pushing through. This day has potential. And in fact, the reason I do better at nights, if I'm left alone and I'm not just distracted by things, which is why I loved originally nights since I was like 13 years old. My mom would sleep. I'm like, okay, now I can live. Yeah. Right? Because I get that personal time. And that time, to me, I am the most productive, because I am very deadline oriented and motivated. So if there's no deadline, it's like forever. But if the morning is coming and I still have things on this day's to-do list, I better get them done.
To me, okay, see, this is exactly what I'm talking about. To me, when you say things like that, it makes fully sense.
It makes sense.
Ali, her boyfriend, my best friend, he always says it makes fully sense. And to be honest with you, now it makes fully sense. But like when I hear you say things like that, that makes sense to me. But the reason, this is my perspective on it, okay?
Okay.
And this is why I like talking to you, because I'm sure a lot of people will relate to either one of us. I always like to live in the lifestyle that I want to have. So for me, everything comes down to, is it sustainable?
Mm-hmm.
And based on the lifestyle I want to have and the person I want to become, developing a habit of sleeping late and waking up late, as tempting as it sounds, doesn't sound sustainable. So I think to myself right now, based on my life and the way that my work schedule is, I have the luxury of choosing when I work. But if I develop that habit, eventually at some point I'm going to struggle. I'm going to struggle to unlearn this habit because that's not who I want to be.
Because that's not who you want to be.
So I might as well just not get into it.
But I went through the exact same thought process, which is super interesting. It needs to be sustainable. And I'm like, okay, what career can I choose that makes it sustainable? Events.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I would love to be, I'm teardown crew. I go volunteer at events for harm reduction, for setup, tear down. And I'm always tear down crew.
I'm asleep when you're tearing shit down.
Tear down crew. And I'm cleanup crew. So like at 4 a.m. when everybody's like tired, I'm like, okay, 4 to 6, I have to clean up, like take my time, you know, and I can adjust my extensive nightly routine, which people have morning routines. I have extensive nightly routines to be done the day.
Yeah.
Rather than done. You know, but yeah. I guess there is just different approaches to things. So I'm like, always want to be that person. But I always also think about what if the person that I want to become changes, which is something that I'm kind of thinking about right now. I've been trying to make this one.
The one that we all know and love.
We all know and love, and love this person and make this person sustainable. And I'm there now. And now I'm looking forward into future. And I'm like, okay, what if there's like different aspects of I want to be? And I'm the type of person that if it comes time that a certain decision that I make becomes that, okay, this type of person I want to be from now on, then the inner belief that I have into this is the best thing we should do for ourselves is gonna just do its thing, and I'm gonna do that thing. Because ultimately what I'm motivated by is this is what's best for us.
Right now.
In terms of where we're looking at, where we want to be, right?
Okay.
So this is feasible. This is what's best for us. So for example, I was such a messy person, right? And I had no idea how to clean up after myself.
Because I know you're going to say you're not messy anymore, and I'm going to disagree with you.
No, I gotten better. Maybe I'm not messy anymore would be
when I come to you guys' room. Okay, you guys aren't dirty.
Let's get inside out.
Okay, let's get inside out. You guys aren't dirty. Okay, first of all, sharp contrast. Very, very sharp contrast. Because I also recognize that I'm not normal. First of all, we need to talk about this actually. I have OCD, and I don't have OCD in the way that people say like, oh my God, I put my pen this way, I'm so OCD. Like, no, I have OCD in the way that like it affects every aspect of my life.
Does that bother you?
Which one?
That little dot.
It did for a while. Did
you try to remove it?
Okay, this is a thing, right? OCD for people, like we talked about it a little bit with Omid. Like, for example, I don't know if you knew this or not. He talked about it on the podcast, so I'm assuming he's okay talking about it. Omid used to have like really, really bad OCD. Like he actually took medication for it and went to therapy for it and stuff like that. Omid's OCD manifested itself in terms of intrusive thoughts. Intrusive thoughts being the foundation of all OCD is kind of like intrusive thoughts, but like intrusive thoughts in the sense of like, if I'm leaving the room, I need to flick the light like 4 or 5 times, or something horrible is going to happen to me and stuff like that. And I know people that are like that. My OCD is not like that. My OCD is in the sense of like, I need things to stay predictable. So for example, if I've accepted in my mind that there is a dent in that thing and it's always been there, I'm okay with it being there because it's always been there. It's always going to be there. Every time I come, it's going to be that way. But if my living room is the way that you saw it right now coming up here, I can't walk in tomorrow and the blanket is crooked. It needs to always be that way. I need to know what I'm walking into. So
the reasoning behind it.
Yeah. So for example, like when I talked to my therapist about it, she was like, okay, so it's a matter of control. I don't know what it is for Omid, but my therapist said that mine was control.
It's interesting how people's OCD comes different. I also did have OCD.
Were you diagnosed with it?
I was not the type of child that was taken to the doctor and said diagnosed.
But you're not a child anymore. Go to the doctor, sweetheart.
I'd rather not do that to myself either. I don't like the label on top of my head. And I don't think that helps me specifically because that also makes you accept that about yourself and not try to change it. I've healed my OCD to high levels because intrusive thoughts, they come. And I would get so pissed off as a kid, even my peace, very important. So pissed off that this little thought, this little dot, this little hopping this thing twice, this not being perfect would piss me off, that I would get pissed off at myself for letting that have control over me. Mm-hmm. And I would be like, you know what? You get to sit there and bother me. And I'm not going to get up and move a muscle to change that.
But can I tell you something? That's when I hear people say stuff like that, and I'm going to be 100% honest to you and everybody watching, that's how I know you don't have OCD. Because OCD is not just intrusive thoughts. Everyone has intrusive thoughts. It's about obsessing over intrusive thoughts.
I see.
And when you say, I don't want the label, whatever, obviously I think everyone should do what they, especially because right now our like mental health system is so fucked up anyways. I want everyone to do what they think is best for them. To some people, maybe it works. To some people, it doesn't. But I think that if you go and you see whether or not you are actually OCD and if you are diagnosed with it, then you can decide how you want to deal with it.
That could be true to a point, but I feel like any person who has obsessive thoughts, if they would have also tried from an early age, not at this age, it's very, very hard at this point because your mental ways is developed in a certain way. But if they've also tried to, I don't know, I can't prove this in any scientific way, but if I would also try to help those thoughts by simply not giving them power and seeing that nothing happens, over time, it would take the obsessive part a little bit lower, if not.
But that's a part of, so that's what I'm saying. So that's a part of my therapy, for example. So people who have OCD, depending on obviously what kind of like treatment they choose for, first of all, for me, I chose not to get medicated just because I had a bad experience, and don't listen to me. I had a bad experience with anxiety medication that I took at one point in my life, like a really bad experience. So I decided, okay, like maybe for better or for worse, I'm not ready to even entertain that, you know? But part of the therapy is people who have OCD knows you're not supposed to entertain your intrusive thoughts. Mm-hmm. So you're supposed to try not to give in to them. Yeah. So ideologically, like just being like hypothetically speaking, what you're saying is true. But the thing is, when you go to therapy, they teach you how not to give in to your thoughts.
Well, what I'm saying is that that's what I did.
Yeah, but the reason why I'm saying that is because like what you're saying, it's a lot easier said than done.
Obviously, yeah. I'm just saying it's happened for me. The fact that I would get pissed off at myself at a very early age stopped that. Like I didn't want to walk on the street and have to hop on the tiles and people look at me and my dad's like, okay, let's hop the tiles when I know it's weird. Yeah. And I need to maintain the amounts of equal right and left footsteps.
But see, like for me,
things like that. And then it got back to the lights and the spot. Like I really want to go touch that and try to clean it, but I don't.
But I'll explain something to you. So you know I have really bad OCD. Like I have, and this, I want to demonstrate to you that this is inside out. So I'm going to tell you something very personal. Okay. So for me, like one of the most heartbreaking things personally is when people don't understand my OCD. And the reason why it's heartbreaking is because when you have OCD, your OCD is very annoying to the people around you.
And to yourself.
But that's the thing. And that you develop a guilt for the fact that you're bothering people by just purely existing.
Okay.
And then on the other side, you feel very isolated because you feel like, okay, people don't understand that more than how much this bothers you, it bothers me.
Yeah.
So then you decide, okay, for me personally, what's the best option? To not, because I don't want to bother people, and I also don't want to feel like I'm being bothered, you know? So you decide to, like, for me personally, I decided to isolate myself. I'd rather be in my own space at all times where I know I'm safe, where I know I'm not bothering anybody. So there's an isolation aspect to it. And then there's an aspect of, like, obviously for me, for example, I love the idea of, like, hosting people. Like, one of my biggest, like, things that I think about all the time, like, goals, is I want to have a big enough house to where I have, like, multiple guest bedrooms, and I want to decorate them all cute and whatever, because my biggest thing is, like, I love the idea of hosting.
Me too.
But imagine how sad it is for me.
Yeah.
I could never host, because for me, hosting people is like so much preparation, and then, like, while I'm hosting, because I have before, I'm, like, eating myself up on the inside, because, like, I'm literally seeing everything in slow motion of, like, okay, this person touched the fridge, so now after they leave the kitchen, without them or anybody else knowing, I need to go wipe that. But I also don't want to mess up the party, so I'm, like, sneaking into the kitchen and, like, chatting and, like, slowly wiping the fridge because I don't want anybody to see. So there's a lot of, like, torment to it, especially as, like, for example, like, a pet owner, like Carter recently passing. One of my biggest things, like, I came home and I told Roham, like, one of the hardest things is I can't even find a single piece of Carter's hair in my house. And that ate me up on the inside, because I was like, I just wanted something of his to smell. But because I was constantly changing his bed, constantly washing his sheets, constantly cleaning his cage, I don't even have anything around my house that reminds me of him. And that makes me feel guilty, because I'm like, oh, like, I want to be one of those people that has, like, their dog lying on the couch and the furniture, the whatever. So it's really hard, you know, like, that aspect of, like, having OCDs, like, my OCD has affected, like, my friendships, my relationships. Like, I've been in relationships where, like, the other person simply just cannot accept that I am this way.
I see. What do you think has helped this get better and you be able to manage it more? And what has helped not get better, but you being able to manage it more? And what has did the opposite of you, like, not being able to manage it at all, and it's getting worse and worse and worse and worse? Because I feel like isolation, just tell me if
it's not a solution.
It's gonna keep making it worse.
Absolutely, it's giving into your thoughts, because when I'm isolated, I can do whatever the fuck I want.
Yeah.
So for me personally, is, first of all, therapy is important, because I learned to like find new coping mechanisms of, like, how to divert my attention from this thing to that thing.
From a trained professional.
It's also nice talking to someone who understands.
Beautiful.
You know, someone who's like, okay, like, I get it. I've experienced it with many of my patients and whatever. The other thing that helps me with my OCD, and this is something that's not so much in my control, is, like, my OCD is worsened by stress. So the more stressed I am, the more OCD
you don't have the ability to deal with those intrusive
because now my thoughts are
you're like, okay, now I have to give in to you so I can deal with this.
And because I have a cleaning type of OCD, when I'm stressed and I clean the things around me, it helps me feel like I'm getting my life together.
I see.
You know what I mean?
It's therapeutic cleaning, I call it. Therapeutic cleaning is a thing.
Like, for example, like, I know how you said, like, oh, like, I taught myself not to think this way, but, like, let me give you an image. Like, every time I leave my house, I get ready in my dressing area right here. Every time before I get ready to go out, I change, do my makeup, do all of that, whatever, take a shower, blah, blah, blah. Before I leave, I have to vacuum the whole upstairs area. I will not leave the house no matter how late I am if I have not vacuumed everything.
I see.
Because I want to come home to this predictable, controlled environment.
And do you think that's because you believe that, back to our last topic, this is for your best interest? At some point, maybe subconsciously, I'm just asking.
Are you asking me if I think it's sustainable?
No, that you feel the need to do that because a controlled environment, which you can predict things, you at some point decided that, oh, this is for my best good. It's for my utmost best.
I've circled back to the idea that being a little bit militant is who I am. So like now my OCD is a lot more controlled because I've established a boundary. Of like, if I'm like, for example, I told you this the other day, I don't remember, like it was a while ago when I started working on my OCD. I was like, now I'm training myself where like, if I see something on the ground, I just pick up the thing that's on the ground and I don't go vacuum the whole kitchen. Because before I would see a piece of hair in the kitchen and instead of picking up that already on its own is like a lie, but then I would vacuum the whole kitchen. So I developed a boundary with myself.
Okay, that's a really good
And my
step.
boundary is that I am a clean person. I don't like this. I like things to be in a certain order. So if I see something, I'm going to pick it up. I'm going to clean it up. But it doesn't mean that, like before I would see a little stain on something and I would drop everything I had to do that day to clean my entire house.
Okay, I see.
So I'm inching closer and closer to that like boundary.
That's a really good step.
Yeah. But overall, I've circled back to the fact that like, you guys know me, like I'm a pretty...
You want to remain consistent with that identity.
Yeah.
Like the strongest will in a human's life, this is what Tony Robbins says, I think, it's the need to stay consistent with your identity. So if you identify yourself as something, that everything you do is gonna, strongest need would be to remain consistent with this identity. So when I said I've used to be a very messy person and I did have OCD before as what I thought I'd have, or like I did have the thought of everything has to be like in a certain order, but mine is more like things need to match, things need to be in a sort of, not like a cleaning type. At some point I've realized, maybe middle school or even like late elementary school, that like, being like the amount of time that it would take me to clean up after myself would just not be sustainable. If I couldn't do anything else, I couldn't play, I couldn't do 7 different other things. So I realized that it's for my greatest good to not care about that thought, or to not care about my environment and to just mess it up. I don't care. I'll just come, change, go.
I admire that in a certain way because I know I could never be that.
And then I got to a point that I was falling from the other side of the rooftop. We say this in Persian.
We said this last time in the podcast.
This is so important to me. Yeah. از اون بر پشت بون افتاده.
شما میگی پشت بون? You guys say
پشت بون افتاده.
We say خر.
Oh, so
Pashta boom is rooftop, khar is donkey. We say we fell from
the other side. Like you've been on this side of something and you go so far on the other side that you fall from the other side. So I became such a messy person. And all my life I had to, like, I would get, if somebody would clean my room, I would yell at them. I would cry, throw a tantrum. My mom, nobody could clean my room. My room doesn't get touched.
That's so crazy.
I would get so pissed off if somebody does that, because I would lose the stuff. I know where exactly it is. I knew the dimension of which area you can find that thing. And like, I couldn't find it if you would move it.
Yeah.
And then I got to a point when I moved out. And I moved out and I was living with somebody that was like, I thought I'm messy.
Ali?
No, before that. Okay. My roommate before that. I thought, I'm messy, but she was constantly cleaning, but her way of cleaning was to gut out everything and clean that area. Okay. And well, you don't have enough time to do all of that and live.
So she would leave it.
At some point, there's gutted out stuff all over the place. And the things you are living now gets added to that. And also, one major rule I have, put things back. Yeah. The moment you use it, Ali doesn't do that either. I'm really trying to develop that. When you put something, or even close the lid, would not close the lid. Come back to it
Ali's
later.
A savage.
Because it would come, she doesn't, he doesn't do that, but she would do that. He just misplaces things. But how you make things you would understand, remain the way they are, is to right away put it back. So when I saw that contrast, I realized how much of a control I have over how I do things. Also, again, a change for me that I realized I don't need to apply discipline, and this happens to anything this applies to anything you need to apply discipline to. They say when your belief in this is what's the best for me changes, you don't need to apply discipline anymore. It just comes naturally. So I realized that, for example, when I'm cooking or I'm making something, the best thing I can do for myself is, because I hate cleaning. I don't like to clean. I don't want to come back to it and have a mess, have to clean, especially after I ate. No, it's probably not going to get done. It's going to stay messy. So the best thing for me is to do it right away, put things away,
so you don't have to
wipe
worry
the counter, and then go eat.
Yeah.
And
so
that
you have your own system.
A lot of things. And I had to develop that system from going from that to be like, okay, this is.
Did Ali just burp?
I don't know who just burped, but that was loud. So it stays consistent with, okay, this is the best of me. So I don't even need to try to, oh my God, now I have to do the dishes. Like automatically, this is for the best of me. Done, let's go. Or like when I'm putting something in my hair, clothes away, go.
So you have your own thing.
Time. Okay. But one thing I'm going to say, that it sacrifices time.
Yeah, it does sacrifice time.
Everything gets done slower, and when I'm in a rush and I need to maintain all of my systems, then I can't.
Okay, this is okay. I have this issue with a lot of my friends.
Okay.
And someone might agree with me. Some people might disagree with me. First of all, before we move on to that, I'm gonna say this. I've developed, like how you said you have your own boundaries of like things have to go back and whatever, this and that. My boundary is similarly but differently is a little bit more spiritual. Now I've developed a boundary with myself where I'm like, okay, like I'm not like all of this extra shit is my OCD, but one thing that's maintained consistent, and I know that now that it's a part of my identity, is I really believe in treating everything with respect. And I mean that with like, you've seen how my home is. Like, for example, one argument I used to have with the guys all the time when I lived with them was like, dude, don't slam the freaking kitchen cabinets and don't slam whatever. And they'd be like, why who cares, like nothing fell, nothing whatever. I'm like, yeah, but like it's, everything is energy, and if you're treating your home with like a reckless energy, then that accumulates, and that your home develops that kind of energy.
I love that.
Like for me, when I come home, I swear to God, I don't care how crazy it sounds, and I've always lived by myself and I love living by myself. One of the first things I do when I come in through the door is I literally say hi to my home. I say hi before I go to bed, right before I sleep. And this is like Farsi, but like it's so like I get a comforting feeling when I'm going to bed because everything is clean and it's my house and everything. I literally say Khuda shukret, thank you. Like, thank you, God, like kind of thing. And it's not like a religious thing. I'm speaking to my house because like I feel so good and warm and like comforted by my house. I say thank you. Like I believe that your house, because you spend so much time in it, it absorbs your energy. And then on top of that, when people see the way you treat your house, they treat it that way too. So if you're slamming the doors in your cabinets or whatever and you have people around you, your friends are going to start doing it too, because they're like, oh, this, and it's not a matter of being
That's
bad
so
friends
true.
or
that
whatever.
That applies to our place a lot.
Bro, I'm OCD and I come to you guys' house and I let loose. I don't care. Like if something drops out of my hand, I don't care, because I look down on the floor and there's already 10,000 different things on the floor.
I also do that because like it comes down to the responsibility too. You're like very responsible of your own space and you take full on responsibility of it. If I make a mess, I have to clean it. But I've lived in a lot of environments which was with other people, and well, in my mom's place, anything outside of my room was my responsibility. I would deal with. But if I would go back to my room, then like that was me. She couldn't like say, oh, okay. But like the house, I had to treat it with a certain type of respect because it's her stuff too. Yeah. Right. But in the places that you're like have roommates, it's kind of like the matter of responsibility falls on no one. Yeah. So no one is now responsible for the garbage in the washroom and it accumulates. Yeah. And like people can say, oh, I have OCD and I'm going to clean it. And take it upon themselves. Some people can say, Amir, poor Amir. Some people can say, we need to come up with systems and try to, what I do is try to educate people. Hey, that's not supposed to be this way. And I do that to a point. If I see nobody cares, I'm not going to care. Right? But it's very important to come up with systems in places like that everybody agrees to, or it just falls on nobody's responsibility. And if it's nobody's responsibility, then nothing gets fixed, nothing gets done, nothing gets taken care of. Everything gets like just used and abused.
Yeah.
So I really liked what you said. I never thought about it
like
that
energy?
way. That I look at it as an energy and how you treat your stuff and how that energy reciprocates.
And it
like,
accumulates too. So your home develops that
and
kind
then
of
you
energy.
will pick up that energy from that thing. So like I noticed that like energetically, you brought this up. I can't focus. It's really hard for me to focus in our house.
Mm-hmm.
Whether than if I go and sit in a car. That's my best focus spot because I feel like because it's small and it's like there's not that much going on, but it's also energetically because when I go home, I'm like chaotic energy. It's all over the place. A little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit of that. Okay, focus. Maybe in my bed in that one corner, I can like maintain my focus till a point. But that's a really good point. I
knew you would like that because you like those kinds of like conversations. So, and that's kind of the things that bond us. Like we do to a certain extent think about it the same way. In criminology, it's called broken window theory, which means that like in neighborhoods that are like high in crime and stuff like that, they like a good way to like deal with that is to like clean up the neighborhood. If there's broken windows, fix it, because they find that like there's more crime in areas where there's already broken windows. People tend to break in even more.
That's so
like
interesting
crazy,
that what it's called broken window theory, because this is something that I learned about myself very recently, and I have a broken window. My windshield is broken currently, and it's been for a couple months. And I realized something about myself, actually, that what you're saying makes sense a lot with it, that you said treating myself with respect and stuff. I realized that I accept a lot of broken things as things that are mine and useful, and I choose to use them, and I look at myself as that level of worthiness.
Yeah.
Which when I figured that out about myself, I was bamboozled. I'm like, do I really think I'm worthy of all the broken things? So when I have a watch, it for most of my life, it gets broken or fucked up as soon as I get it in a few days.
Yeah.
Car I got 3 times got hit right away. Like a charger that's not fully functional, I keep using it.
Yeah.
My phone screen, and then I'm like, wow, I've conditioned myself into accepting and believing that this is what my energy is. So it comes back to me.
Attracting that. Yeah.
And I'm getting those same goosebumps because I started fixing them one by one. I fixed my watch.
And it stopped.
I fixed my like necklace that had knots in. It's like slowly. And now the last thing I have to fix, I fixed my laptop. I had to get a brand new laptop. I couldn't work with my laptop because it was broken. I was like, okay, it works. I'm going to do it.
Yeah, you get used to it.
And nothing was getting done. But now I have a new laptop. I feel good about it. I open it. I use it. It feels good. Okay. So if there's no broken window, then maybe it doesn't attract more.
It doesn't attract. It's such a crazy concept, and that's actually true. You know what's funny?
Wow.
Everybody always thought, all of my friends, and maybe I'll say this now and people watching will think that too. Everybody always thought I was like exaggerating and I was like being mean and like whatever. But like I had this thing with Ali, and like he's my best friend. He's gonna be on the podcast eventually, and like I know he doesn't give a fuck about anything. He would talk about anything. One argument that I would always have with him is I would always say, dude, how come bad things only happen to you? And when I said bad things, I don't mean like bad things, because that happens to all of us. I meant like he would always drop and break things. He would always get into random car accidents, stupid shit. They would always dent. He wasn't even in his car and they came and dented his car. And like always shit like that. And it was right. And his argument to me was always, dude, it's an accident. He's like, I dropped it out of my hand on accident. Like, I wasn't even in the car. How am I supposed to control another car hitting me? But if I'm being completely honest with you, and maybe people will think I'm insane for this, you attract that kind of energy because that's how you treat the things around you. I always told Ali, I said, you have a reckless energy. When you are cooking, you open things, you leave it, you break things, you drop things, things pour, the water splashing everywhere. It's a reckless energy, and reckless things keep happening to you.
It's very interesting how I was listening to a podcast. I was explaining this in a very small example. Can I say what podcast?
Sure.
it's Mindset Mentor podcast. It's something I've been listening to for
you've always told me about it. I have to check it out.
I've learned so much about this one podcast and a couple others, but it was talking about the example of giving two kids that you meet a truck, a little truck that. Are we good?
I'm listening. Sorry, I just wanted to make sure we're not going over.
Are we good?
Yeah, we're okay.
The example of giving them a truck, and it's a gift. You're giving a blue truck, a little toy
to both of
two boys, little boys. And let's say you're the mom or you're the dad, whatever, you're a friend. And you're giving them. One kid takes the truck and says, it's not red, it's blue. It's not my favorite color, but it's okay, right? Takes the truck, goes, plays around with it. What little boys do? Just slash it around, throw it, blah, blah, blah. And then lunchtime comes. You're like, oh, lunchtime, leaves it over there, doesn't care about it. And that's what a lot of kids do, right?
Yeah.
And then after lunch, like plays with it till night. And then at the end of the night, it's like kind of dirty and it's like parts of it is like all over the place. And like it just leaves it there. It goes to sleep. The other kid is like, oh my God, thank you, a truck. And then takes the truck, plays with it, is very careful that it doesn't get broken or dirty if something happens. It's lunchtime, puts the truck somewhere safe, comes and has lunch. And then you go back, okay, plays with it at the end of the night, cleans it, puts it aside, somewhere beside all the other things. Who are you going to give a truck to next time?
Yeah.
Right? That's how the universe works.
Yeah. That's actually a really cool analogy.
And I was like, oh my God, that makes sense. I told Ali this too. I'm like, that's how we should take care of the truck.
Did you steal my other slipper?
No, it's under there. But you think I am a slipper thief?
Did I just get slipper napped? But yeah, that's how that works.
Yeah.
Okay. I really like that we talked about that before because we don't have that much time left. I do want to talk about because we could talk forever, and that's why I wanted to do this podcast because I honestly was so tired of listening to podcasts of people talking about accomplishments and shit. I just wanted to talk about normal everyday fucking things, like normal people problems.
I like that.
I don't want to fucking hear Elon Musk talk about the millions of dollars he has all the time because fuck, how many of us are going to turn out like Elon Musk and how many of us are going to fall somewhere in between? The laws of average I'm starting to get acquainted with the idea that most of us are probably going to end up being quite average. And even the ones of us that think are crazy in the grand scheme of things, if you knew what was going on in the world, you would know that you too are average.
I mean, people's average is different, actually.
But I'm but that to me is okay, naturally transitioned into this conversation. That's one thing that I always had a difficult time with because of the way that I grew up. My parents, especially my dad, being average was a swear word to my dad. Us not being my dad didn't care if we were getting an A+. My dad only cared if there was another kid also getting an A+. If there was, then why weren't you getting A++? My dad's thing was always of it wasn't a matter of how well we were doing. It was a matter of you cannot be average. You are not average. It was just a fucking swear word. And it messed me up in so many ways because growing up, I literally was so hard on myself. And I had this thing where I identified myself with and my value with my accomplishments.
Do you remember when I said I learned something today and that I need to say it? That actually transitions to that perfectly.
What is it?
Are you done what you were saying?
It's okay. Just say what you're going to say.
So how it was saying, I was actually thought about when I listened to this and learned it today, it was in After School. It's a YouTube show. I actually compared me and you right at the end, which is very interesting. So it's a style of, they compared people and kids, but it happens to adults too, in a reward system when they keep telling a kid, you're smart, you're intelligent, you're talented, you're so good. That's how they get praised after doing anything. They put kids specifically to prove this theory. They put kids into specific groups. To some, after doing a task, they gave appraisal you're smart, you're intelligent, your identity-based appraisal, right? And to a other group, they gave effort based appraisal, like, oh, good job, you tried so hard to get that, you pushed so hard, I saw you being resistant, I saw you being persistent, even though you had to figure things out, it was hard, you did it, good job. So they gave those, it's super interesting to me, they gave them this type of appraisal, so verbs and like things that like, okay, you're effort based and identity based. And then they appraised these kids and the control group, which they didn't say anything to, over time and over different tasks. And the group that were told they were very smart and they were very good and they were talented and they were intelligent tended to perform just as they used to, or sometimes even pick up problems that are less hard because they needed to maintain the identity that I am smart. So they picked up things that are easier so they can be smart. Mm-hmm. And they even, it went into, they even, if they had to report themselves doing something, they would lie about things that they could achieve and things, because
these are the ones that were like praised based on their accomplishments.
They were saying you're smart, not accomplishments, based on their identity. You're smart, you're the talented, you have high IQ, which is how my parents raised me.
Okay.
They're like, oh my God, you're a genius. Like, you're right.
What about the other kids?
The other kids that was efforts based, they kept getting better and better because they were praised on how hard they worked. So they wanted to work hard. They kept picking up harder problems to deal with and going harder at it and pushing more because they were praised on that.
You know what's funny? That's literally like, this is why I love talking to you, because we just look at the same things. We grapple with the same things, but like we do it in such different ways. Like the average thing I was talking about, like I know so many people watching this would be like, if there are so many people watching this, would think of what I just said about most of us are going to end up somewhere average as like a swear word. They're going to be like, what do you mean? Like you're fucking whatever. But this is what I mean by average, okay? You know me. I'm the type of person where like my upbringing was very much that. Like my dad was the most militant person you could ever envision in your life.
You have that in you whether you want it or not.
Buddy, my dad would wake us up on the weekends early. Like 6 a.m.
Okay.
And no kid. And we were kids. Not like, I'm not talking high school. I'm talking like toddler. And my dad would be like, wake up. And we would be like, why do we have to wake up so early? It's the weekend. We don't even have homework to do. You know what my dad would say? My dad would be like, you don't have anything to do? And we'd be like, no. And he'd be like, okay, get up and sit in your bed. He just wanted us to be up. He didn't care. Or like my dad would be like, he'd come home. Every kid's dream is to have time to just do nothing. Just play around, fuck around, whatever. Course. My dad would come home and see that we had like no homework. And he'd be like, come, we have to go somewhere. And you'd be like, and everybody knew if my dad said we need to go somewhere, it was not going to be something fun. You know what he would do? On our days off, he would make us run errands with him. So he would make us like sit in the car, like while he parked at the bank, or like go into the bank with him and save his spot while he went to another bank.
He was teaching you life, basically, adult life as a kid.
But like horribly, because now when I think about it, I'm like, dude,
the kid needs to be a kid though.
Exactly. I never got to be a kid. And I'm like, fuck, that sucks. But on the other end of it, like, by the time I was 12, I knew how to go to the bank and do shit.
Yeah,
and like I know what it takes to run a life. So in that sense, it also gave me perspective on like being an adult. But it did fuck me up in a lot of ways. But that's what I'm trying to say. Like my dad always had this very like, you kids are like, we were trophies to my dad. So we had to perform, and we had to perform like the best. My dad's thing wasn't like, oh, you did good. He was like, but were you the best?
Based on your performance. So you had to keep pushing the performance part.
Absolutely.
Efforts based.
And the thing with my dad is that like, my dad was such a strict person. It almost was like, you never got any, you're so funny looking at yourself.
It's the opposite.
You never got any love from, like, that was how you bonded with my dad.
Yeah.
Because like, if I did well on something with my dad and he found out, he found out I was good at art. So he always used to take me shopping for art supplies. So like the way you would bond with my dad is you would do well at things. And then maybe you could get some of his like love, you know? So I became the type of person that like closely identified myself with my accomplishments, and I was miserable. Like, you've seen me at some of my worst times in my life where I was like, I've accomplished everything someone could accomplish by my age, and I hate myself.
You're addicted to accomplishments, and this makes a lot of sense. And some of them you don't even need. You just accomplish.
I was, but look at the life I'm living now.
It's definitely different.
You know what I mean? And I got to a point where I was like, okay, what is the solution to all of this? And this goes to like being the average thing. Right now, because I fell off the other end of the horse a little while. Like, I went from being completely like strict and accomplishment based to being like, YOLO, life is short. Let's fuck around and go to parties and get fucked up. And then I circled back and I found my middle ground. And my middle ground is, I don't want to be the best compared to the people around me. I just want to be great. And what I consider being great, in my opinion, I've developed an identity where I think everybody's personality serves a purpose. So by actually guiding militantly how well people are going to do at certain things, you're actually kind of doing the world a disservice. You know what I mean? Because maybe my job is not to be the best at X, Y, and Z. Maybe my job is to just being great at being dunya. Maybe your job is to just be great at being mahtab. You know what I mean? So like, I wake up every day and I'm like, I want to do really well at the things that I want to do because I want to be great. But I no longer want to be the best at X, Y, and Z. And if I'm being completely honest with you, going for that is actually bringing me the closest to I've ever been to being the best. Like, comparatively to what I admire and what I idealize. So, I don't know.
Finding that in you, like the best you. To you.
Yeah, that's something that I'm still grappling with. So I haven't fully developed the idea, but that's finding the balance and like being okay. This is what I'm going to say is going to be so controversial. You might not even like it. I'm learning to be okay with being average. And that's not to say that I'm not aiming high or whatever, but if you look at the grand scheme of life, because social media has a way of convincing you that life is, because it takes little things and blows it up and makes it seem like the whole wide world. So like, for example, right now, if you go on social media, everyone's making money, everybody's driving nice cars, everybody's doing this. And it makes you think that like you have, like everyone's doing good and you're behind. But if you drop the social media shit and you look at the thousands of people that you walk by every day, most of those people are average.
And again, it depends on how you define average, and it comes based on your life experience, right? So like, you could say, I'm okay with being average, or you could say, I'm okay with wanting small and not wanting big, which is something I do. I'm like, I'm okay with this much.
I'm literally trying to move out of my house right now because my house is too big.
Yeah, so it's a good practice to have because it adds on top of the peace level. You have less to worry about and all of those things. But I striving to be your best self is actually what balances that out, because you are trying to be average compared to everybody else, but you're striving to be your best self, which I found through so much digging that, I was digging at what's my purpose. And I always thought my purpose is to do something for the world. My purpose is to be this person to the world. I thought it's not that much with being and that much more with doing. But I found that it's actually your purpose.
That's exactly what it is, what you just said.
To be the best version of you. So you can be an example of a person and their best. So it also inspires other people to be their best version.
Yeah.
Which is the whole purpose fulfilled.
But when I said like best, this is like our society has already defined what it means to be the best.
Not best to compared with everybody. Best
no,
compared to yourself.
I know what I'm saying. I know what you're saying. I agree with what you're saying. I'm saying, like, to clarify what I meant, I feel like societies develop, like our culture, like this is like one very toxic thing about our culture. It's already defined what it means to be the best. And social media is a big part of that. A lot of money.
Capitalism is a base.
Exactly. A lot of money. Basically being tapped in more into your mind than your heart, because how else are you going to make a slave of people if they're listening to their intuition? If they're happy with who they are, make them super unhappy with who they are. They're easier to control that way. So the best in our society is very materialistic. It's very comparative, and not in the best way, because they basically have us in a hamster wheel. For as long as you're chasing this carrot, this best, you're never happy with who you are, but you're producing the most benefit for the people around you, right? But my thing is like of being great is find out who you actually are, what makes you happy. Who's important. Who are you at your core, and be the greatest version of that. Yeah. Because I promise you, everybody's on this planet for a reason. Everybody serves a purpose if they actually live truly as themselves and become make the most of your life. You know what I mean?
And that's where also the concept of like authenticity comes from. Mm-hmm. And that's I found through digging that's one of my highest values, to stay authentic. And it does limit me at certain points. I'm not going to say it never does, because I've realized that certain limits I put on my personalities because I want to be authentic. But for example, I was always the type of person that if something that I'm doing, you're saying materialistic, like becoming a real estate agent, is something that I could make a lot of money with and a good life in, but is not authentic as the best version of me and what I would be really good at I just automatically didn't do it. So I never put that as my goal, to be the best as in what society defines the best. And I know this is very controversial, and a lot of people are like telling me like, what the hell are you doing? You're supposed to be the richest that you can, right? And have a comfortable life and make smart decisions. And that works for a lot of people. And I believe that is their purpose and their path. But for me, I was like, I always have to stay authentic with what Mahtab, what Moonlight would be good at and would enjoy doing on a daily basis. I can never go for a job, a position, a deal, a business that doesn't make me feel good on the daily on what I'm doing. And obviously there's going to be a percentage of what you do that you don't like. That's every job.
But generally
is like, do I want to be a person that lives that lifestyle? And okay, out of all the options they have, which one of these are going to bring me more profit? Yeah. Which is why having a venue was like always my dream. Yeah. It's like, okay, I could do all the things I'm good at, and it's a good idea, and I could live that lifestyle.
The sweet spot.
Yeah, the sweet spot. Yeah, but it's important to be authentic and ask those questions about yourself. What do I like? That's something I had to run through last year, and starting of this year, I had to go really, really deep in wintertime. Actually, I had to go really deep into myself, figure out. Remember when I was telling you I'm lost? I have no idea what I want. I had to go deep into what I like.
Yeah, and what makes you happy.
And not just an exploring phase. I've been in an exploring phase. I am still a little bit in an exploring phase. But this whole exploring phase had taught me what I like and what I don't like. Like, okay, try out barbering. I don't like. Yeah. I have to try that thing to realize what stays authentic within this path to be able to fulfill my purpose, which is being my best self. So like digging deep and really what I like.
Highly controversial idea, honestly. And me and Omid talk about this a lot. Is like, Omid, I remember, and he's okay to talk about this because he talked about it on my podcast a little bit too. I've had conversations with Omid where he's like, oh, I'm lost. And for him, that phase is now. Like, that's what he's going through currently. And we had this conversation where I was like, and this is going to sound so cliche and it's probably going to be very controversial, but like, I told Omid, like, everybody was like, do this, mind over matter, fuck your whatever, this, and that. And I literally looked at Omid because I relate to that so much because I've been a lost soul my entire fucking life. I literally looked at him and I said, bro, the best way to guide yourself out of this feeling of like being lost is follow the things that make you feel good.
You've told me that
and
before.
That was like the opposite of the advice he was getting because everybody was telling him, do this, do this, do this. And none of those things felt good. So he was like, fuck, like I gotta go to school and do this. And none of those things felt good to him. So what I was telling him was very contrary to that. And he was like, yeah, but what if staying at home and sleeping feels good to me and whatever, this and that. I'm like, dude, there's a balance. If you're a good person and if your moral compass is on point. You're not a horrible person. You're not on some Jeffrey Dahmer shit. You're actually your intuition. You're close with your intuition. You're a good person. Your insides are at peace. The things that will feel good to you will be the things that will be for the greater good too. You just have to listen to what feels good. So if right now you're what feels good to you, as fucked up as it is to go home and to sleep, if that actually feels good to you, maybe that's just what you need right now.
I guess we all use different words to describe things. To me, feel good would be connected to, well, we connect words differently in our brain, to a comfort zone. And I might not feel good about certain things, but I feel right. I feel like this is the right thing to do.
Do you want to hear something that you're probably not gonna like? And the reason why I don't say right is because I feel like right is something that's like validated by the outside.
That's what I'm saying. Not common sense right. Me right. Like feeling from intuition that this is right.
It's so funny. You work from I have to have you back on the podcast one time to talk about this, because like we're running out of time.
Yeah,
but I love this conversation, so I really want to bring you back and talk about this. It's so funny.
She said she wants to bring me back.
You operate from the outside in, and I've analyzed this to a T because I love this contrast. I learned so much from the contrast between the two of our personalities. You work from the outside in, and I work from the inside out. Inside out. Even when it comes to things like confidence, we can't get into this. This is a great conversation, and I hate that we have to end on this. But like when we talk about confidence, and you're like, I have to get my body to look this way, my hair to look this way, and I'm sure a lot of people relate to you. So I'm not saying that mine is right or yours is wrong. It's actually, I love that we have that difference. For me, it's the complete other way.
I need proof to prove myself.
Exactly. And that's how your brain works. That's just who you are. It's not wrong. Yeah. It's who you are. For me, it's the other way around. It doesn't matter how great I look, how horrible I look, how much I like the way I look, how much I hate the way I look. If I haven't,
or the outcome of your things that you've done.
Yeah. If I haven't internally decided that I like myself, I don't like myself. It doesn't matter. I have to work from the outside in. So when
inside out.
From the inside out, yeah. So I have to spend a lot of time being alone, deciding what feels good to me, and then the rest just happens.
That's very interesting. Because I'm like, whatever I feel, I'm like, I have to double guess it, and then I have to try things, and then those things, if I become good at, then are proof that I'm good at this thing. So I can prove myself when I do budget every month that, I can handle my budget. But if I don't do my budget every month and I don't have those strict boundaries in place, then I'm like, I'm really good at that. And then 3 months later, I'm fucking up.
Yeah.
It becomes like an ego thing.
To me, I am the proof. So if I don't feel good,
yeah.
That's proof enough that I don't give a fuck what's happening around me or whatever. I don't feel good. Yeah.
Very interesting.
Thank you for coming on my podcast.
Thank you for inviting me. This was so much fun. I didn't think it would be, but it was so much more fun than I thought.
I had so much fun too.
I thought it would be like a questionnaire based, but it was more like a back and forth, just like having conversations. What we do.
But I'm serious. I really want to have you back because I feel like you're one of those. I really love talking to you, and I love like the contrast of like, I don't know. It really does something for me. So I really definitely want to have you back, because there's right now sitting here, I can think of a million other things we can talk about. So like, I would love to have you back if you want to ever come back.
Yay.
And for sure. Is there anything else you want to say before we get off? Is there anything you want to say to the world before we get off?
I want to tell the world that the things we just talked about might sound just like friendly talk, blah, 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 but there were nuggets in there that if you
nuggets
caught,
of wisdom.
Yeah, that if you caught, that comes from both of us doing so much inner work.
Yeah.
That is like very useful. So do think about those things.
It's not just random conversation. It's blood, sweat, and tears. It's nights of restlessness and... Yeah, but I hope that's what comes out from my podcast. I hope what comes from my podcast, I don't even think about anything financial or anything with my podcast or doing numbers or anything. The only thing with my podcast is I hope it becomes a channel for me to like express myself through. And the other thing is I hope that people find themselves in me or my guests and that they feel less lonely because of it.
Oh, that was so adorable.
That's my only,
I love
that's
that.
literally my only hope.
I feel like that's kind of the point of creating art in any way.
I think that's my purpose, to make
Ooh.
people feel less lonely. Because I will tell you this is so weird to end on this note. One thing with me that I could never get rid of, and I kind of like it. I've cozied up with the idea, and like it has a certain element to my personality, and it's just I've come around to realize it's just who I am. I've always felt very lonely.
Yeah, you
like
say
very,
that all the
very
time.
lonely.
And I'm like, we're literally like all around you. We're here.
Yeah, but
You're
I'm
like,
a lone
deep
wolf.
down, I
Like
feel
it's just
like
who I
you're
am,
lonely.
you know? And I really just like my biggest thing is I just want people to be able to see themselves in regular people and to know that they're not alone.
Yeah. Just to be able to relate to people and seeing that they have the same concerns and ideas and struggles that you have, I guess would be really valuable in what you're bringing. Is
Yeah,
a lot of that.
dude, you're not weird. There's no right way to fucking live life. It's all
Say
one
it,
big
say
project. We're all gonna fucking die at the end. Like, come on, let's be so for real. Like, nothing really, honestly, like, everything matters because you want to make the most of this life that you have. But at the same time, nothing matters because we all know how this is gonna go. So, you know, at least make the project fucking dope. Make it something worth putting in a museum or some shit.
Ooh.
I love you guys. Thank you so much for watching. And I love you. Thank you so much for being on my podcast. And I hope to see you guys next time.
Bye.
Bye.